All right, guys, we're all set to get started with our first company presentation here in track one. I'd like to introduce CEO Joseph Nakhla from Tribe Property Technologies.
Thank you. Was it something I said? No. Good morning, everyone. I'll just get into this. Maybe we'll get that door if it's okay. Thank you. So my name is Joseph Nakhla. I'm the CEO of Tribe Prop Tech. We are a company that's focused on an area that you probably have some bad memories of if you ever lived in a condo or rented an apartment. It's property management. Nothing like property management lessons at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. We started as a pure software company, and since then we've grown into one of Canada's largest property management companies, both on the rental side and on the condo corporation side. And I'll explain to you a little bit more about this. A little bit about my background. I studied civil engineering, got bitten by the technology bug. I got involved with a company called TO Networks. I was the CEO there for overnight 17 years success. And we had a great exit with PayPal, and my roots towards densification, buildings, and the way they operate brought me back into the world of how we live and in these communities. So I'll just kind of orient you a little bit more. Again, maybe something that everybody understands. When you're driving and you see those big buildings, there's two types mainly. One is either a full building owned by a REIT or a big family office that rents them all out. We call those apartments, or condos. And the condos come in different shapes and sizes. You can drive by the Shangri-La, that's a condo. You can drive by low-rise. And in the US, less in Canada, you can drive by these homeowner association communities. These are gated communities. The idea there is you own your unit, you own your condo, you own your big house, whatever that may look like, but you have quite a bit of common interests that are shared between you and your neighbors. That densification really started to take off mainly in the last 30, 40 years. Again, if you look back to New York, you can make an argument 60, 70 years. But for the rest of us globally here, this really started taking off in most recent times. So the landscape and the skyline have changed significantly in places like Toronto and in Vancouver. You don't need to look very far. There's an incredible number of cranes. That's what those cranes are doing. They're building these big towers, both for rental and for condos. What our company does specifically is we built the largest suite of technology platform and tools to manage these communities, but we didn't just stop there. We actually took an extra step and actually replaced the traditional property management experience. So actually, a building that's a big condo building will come to us for full management needs, or they'll go to traditional property management company for full management needs. The difference with us is you get the full suite of products and services, which I'll be telling you a little bit about here. So we are started in Vancouver, Canada. Dumb luck, happens to be the most regulated condo market in the world. You probably didn't know this. You can go tell your buddies about it later. But it's a true statement. The rest of the world actually looks at our regulation here. So if you have a bad experience with condo corporation here, which is hard to believe that you didn't, it's likely because we have a lot of regulation here. And we're all accustomed to learning that regulation is a bad thing. And most times it can be. But in this particular case, it's actually really required. Regulation is not needed when everybody's condo is $50,000. Regulation is really needed when everybody's condo is $1 million. And that's really what happened. If some of you that have been around in Vancouver, you'll have experienced some disasters in the 90s. If you remember the leaky condos, if this brings any memories. And what happened at that time is the government had to step in and help people through a significant amount of challenges. Fast forward, a lot of regulation got introduced. The rest of the world started to build. Places like Toronto, places like LA, San Fran, Seattle, and all that densification around the globe started to happen. And they kind of said, man, how do we get around those regulations? How do we put together regulations that can actually help us? Even places like Dubai, if you've ever been, a lot of the regulation in Dubai are actually picked up from Vancouver here. So we're a Vancouver company. We just happen to be a national footprint. We track to do about $20 million in revenue, and don't clean your eyes. That is our market cap. We're trading below 1 times revenue, which is why I'm here to tell you about an amazing company that exists. And Most importantly for us is we are also a high growth company. We've experienced, we're a Fast 50 company, we're a Fast 500 company. Not to impress you, just impress upon you the significant amount of growth we've experienced in the last 4 or 5 years. A good stat for you to keep in mind, January 2018, we had nothing under management, assets under management as they call them. Today, we're close to $22 billion of assets under management. There's only 3 national players in Canada. There's a company called First Service, you may have heard of, obviously a public company, great company, very traditional. Second company is a company called Associa out of Texas, does play big in Canada. And the third company is ours. And when we say national, what that means that if you're building a condo as a developer and or a REIT that has a big portfolio of buildings anywhere in Canada, these are the only 3 people you would call if you want somebody to help you left to right. So we made a significant investment in our infrastructure in the last couple of years to get to that position, and now we're really well suited for the growth. It's the biggest market you've never thought of. You've thought of real estate, of course you have, and it's massive, but property management is in the tune of about $110 to $120 billion spent a year. This does not include any transactions, does not include any work that you do to your 4 walls, meaning if I live in a condo and I want to do a big renovation and I spent $50,000, $60,000, that's not included in that number. That number is purely based on condos maintaining their existence based on budgets annually. What is the problem? Well, if you've lived in a condo, you'll likely know the problem. Number 1 complaint is lack of communication, lack of transparency, but there's even more under the hood. One of the biggest challenges, I spoke about regulations. This regulation is becoming more and more in every market, and you have to get people that are licensed to do that work. So think about it this way. What used to be a building that's worth $10 million with 100 units in it, and everybody's unit is worth $80,000 to $100,000, is now worth $100 million. And the budget is a couple $1 million, and it's got to get spent properly. Most people complain where the money goes. Everybody's maintenance fees in Western Canada is about 55 cents. Eastern Canada is about 65 cents. So if you have 1,000 square feet, you're spending $650 a month on average, a lot more if you're in the Shangri-La or the Pac Rim or what have you. Where does that money go? What transparency do you have on it? What decisions are being made on your behalf? That's a condo corporation making those decisions. And what we've done as an organization is we've increased significantly that kind of transparency for you to be able to see as a homeowner. But in addition, we've also built a long list of tools that allow this community to be managed properly. So your unit in a bad market, I don't know, we haven't seen that for a while, but in a bad market is not coming down by $50,000 to $100,000 annually because your building, which you don't control, is not being managed properly. So the challenge was, how do you build technology that can take that complicated group of stakeholders and have it all run in harmony? And that's the investment, a big investment we've made in our organization from a tech point of view. Because really, you've got owners, and if you live in Vancouver and Toronto as well, you'll know there's a lot of people that buy condos and just rent them out. So that relationship changes as well. So you're a condo corp owner, and you take your condo and you rent them out to a tenant. Well, this tenant has different rights. It gets really complicated in terms of what they can and cannot do in the building. Then we have those councils and boards, which is basically an elected group of people that live in the community, and they actually make decisions on behalf of the community and get elected every year through an AGM and SGM process. Then there's a property manager. This is a person who's licensed to do the work that guides this community. I want to make sure that everybody understands. When we speak about property management and when we manage buildings, we're not cleaning the carpet. We're not out there with handyman, installing doors or fixing problems. We quarterback all that. We have all the data. We ensure everybody makes their payments. We ensure that the money is dispersed to the proper people that are doing the work. We make sure the building is clean by actually having an RFP process and bringing in people that can do the work, but we're not on site doing the actual heavy lifting itself. And then there's the landlord relationship. And in the case of institutional rental, which means a REIT that calls us and says, can you manage on behalf? Let's take Starlight, for example, just bought something in Edmonton and said, hey, we just bought 4 or 5 buildings. Can you come in and manage that on our behalf? We have a completely different suite of products and services that are very specific to that, because our job is to make sure that they get occupied, because we make a percentage of that rent. So we have tools that can list these units, that can actually take in digital applications for people that want to live in there. I hate to tell you, but it's true. On our app, on our platform. We can actually run a social profile on you. We can see if you're partying a lot. We can see if you use different funny language on social media. This is actually a part of our features from a product set point of view. We do obviously credit checks, and we do digital leasing. You move in, you live there, and we collect rent from you monthly. Then you have developers, a whole new world. These are the guys that actually go out there, grab a piece of land, and get it developed. First, they go to the city and beg them to give them density. So the developers are asking to give them 26 floors. The city says, no, I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to give you 20 floors. Plus, you got to make sure that it's within that price range, so on and so forth. And you're seeing more and more, especially within our ecosystem, of people building what we call master planned communities. This is when a developer buys a massive piece of land, gets it rezoned, puts it out there, and of course the city will ask for some rental units, below average rent units for commitment, so on and so forth. So it gets really complicated, and the definition of success for this developer looks very different than everybody else. Of course, he doesn't want this community to not be well managed, but he doesn't really care. He really wants to sell. He wants to make sure it's in good hands, and he wants to make sure that the budgets within the first year or two are bang on. And then you got the world of trades. And I don't need to tell you, but buildings are significantly more complex, significantly more, it requires a lot more like smart building technology, the heating systems, what have you. So when you put it all together, how do you build a platform that can go out there and actually address all those needs? Well, we have, and I'll explain a little bit more in a second. Here's some examples of what we do. So when I say condos, and you see some nice glitzy buildings here, you probably recognize a lot of them. Yes, we're in a lot of those, but we're also in smaller, low-rise, no swimming pool, no big, workout rooms. So we work with the developers. Our technology is completely customizable for the needs. We work with about 100 developers in Canada, and we're starting to crack into the U.S. here. And we also work with a long list of rental, what we call institutional rentals, the REITs you would recognize here, but you'd be shocked. The overwhelming majority, by the way, of rental in Canada is not owned by REITs. The overwhelming majority of rental units are either owned by family offices or what we call the indie market, the independent market. It's a person that will buy 4 or 5 condos and rent them out. So how do we do it? Well, as a homeowner, if you move into one of our buildings, you'll download the app and everything will be there specific to your unit. If we work with a developer, meaning it's a brand new condo, and everything specific to the building. I'm talking for your unit, square footage, all your models, which package did you choose, Pantone colors for your walls, the reminders of your warranties for all your appliances, everything that you need about your unit is there. Then we also have a digital marketplace for you as a homeowner. What does that mean? It means we got almost 100,000 plus people living in our communities. We know a lot about you, not in a creepy way, but maybe. But we know you've got kids. We know you have pets. We know you're just moving in. We know where you live. We know the size of your unit. We can actually curate products and services that make sense for you. We know when you're moving in, you're likely going to need triple play. You need internet and TV. So we actually have gone out and negotiated on your behalf. We know once a year, you're going to need to update your insurance. We know you may need mortgage updates. We know you may need grocery delivery. On your own, there's no chance you can actually leverage the group buying power. You cannot buy on your own deals, laundry services. So we've actually built a two-way marketplace that allows us to put in front of you as a homeowner products and services very specific to you. But what we're also got, and we don't talk much about it, but we're actually building one of the largest scope of those products, smart building technology for existing buildings. We know, because we have an AI platform that allows us to see the benchmarking of what a building does. We know this 40-year-old building is spending more per square foot on gas consumption than this newer building. And we know this is out of control because it's way below the average or above the average. We can actually act on that because of the data we have. And we're starting to take more and more products there. So it's not only just an ESG, buzzy, we'll make you a little bit more greener. Actually, we can see what you're doing right and what you're not doing right. And we can actually drill down into the category to actually fix that problem. We also have digital services. So if you've ever lived in one of those buildings, you wanted to book your amenities, you got to book it. You don't know the rules. You can't, I'm going to have my son's birthday party. Am I allowed to bring glass? Am I not? Can I bring alcohol? Can I not? Rule of thumb is you should always bring alcohol, but that's a different conversation. And then we also do the day-to-day services on top of the work that we do. So we don't just digitize the community and manage it and give it to a property manager. Within our midst is a property manager. So you really either go to a traditional company or you come to us. Our marketplace, which I touched on, constantly being added with products and services. It's our smallest revenue stream, meaning our smallest revenue bucket, yet it's one of our fastest growing. And it's pretty straightforward. The more we know about the buildings and the bigger the footprint we have, and we continue to grow, frankly, day after day, we have the ability to bring some really interesting products and services. And when you've got a platform that tells you that this building is experiencing significantly more Amazon packages coming to it, and it doesn't have a way to deal with it other than concierge opening the door, closing the door, going up, then we can actually put an offer in front of them for a package system that actually can generate maybe an additional $400 or $500 a month for us, but also saves them a lot of the challenges associated with the building. So what does that mean? It means from a microeconomics point of view, and this is real numbers on the right-hand side. So this is our last quarterly numbers. It means traditionally, a traditional property management company per month usually charges $20 per home plus $2 operational transactions. Fancy way of saying a group of products and services that you're actually generating. On the right-hand side, you'll see we're running approximately $34 revenue per home plus $6 operational transactions. So you're seeing this right. On average, $22 generated per door with a traditional company, the same amount of services that we're offering for 40, yet we have the fastest growing footprint, simply because of what I said earlier. You're not worried how much you're paying your property management company. You're worried how well your $600, $700 a month are being spent. 3 revenue streams, very sticky, recurring, software and services revenue. That's a good chunk of our revenue. It's about 80% of that. 15% of our revenue is about transactional revenue. It's a long list of products and services. Think of it as in-app purchases or in-app transactions. And then we have digital services and partnerships, which I referenced earlier. Our quarterly revenue, we just thankfully had our best quarter as an organization. Again, overwhelming majority of that is recurring revenue. And you'll see year over year, very strong organic growth. We do have an M&A engine as well that allows us to buy smaller tuck-in traditional property management companies and bring them in. This is a little bit of a quick view, quarter over quarter. Gross profit, it's important for you to know, or the gross margin specifically, is we actually include all of our compliance and licensed property managers in our ecosystem. So actually, when you look at our gross margin, we load people into our cost of goods, which is unique to the industry and frankly, most software companies. In our case, we're not tone deaf. We understand the importance of profitability. We've built our national footprint. We just made a big acquisition in Ontario just a few days ago. And now we feel really good about our national footprint and all the dark spots that we wanted to cover. And we're actually introduced a number of really interesting cost-saving measures that do not impact our growth. Expect our growth to stay steady, if not stronger than what we've indicated to the street. And with that, we see profitability coming shortly because we understand that's what all investors are looking for, but we've invested heavily to get the national footprint. Here's some examples of the acquisitions we make. Overwhelming majority of companies we've ever purchased, we've purchased 12, are EBITDA positive. They tend to be lower gross margin just simply because they're traditional. They help us from a geographical expansion. We are, and we have done, small tuck-ins that are actually tech, apps, and or products and services that actually fit in our ecosystem, complement our services. And in some cases, new verticals. We really like the student housing, so look for us to be active in that space as well. The market is big. I won't spend too much time on this because I think you'll have to have been blind to not see the difference in there. But really, the $110 billion is a big number that I want to bring to your attention. And the other, obviously, big area is, think about it, 1 million people coming into Canada every year. Where are they going to live? They're definitely not going to be buying big homes with big fences around them. They're buying into rental or living into rental or buying into the condo space. Is our Canadian footprint with yellow, which may not be coming through. And the dark gray is either areas we have activities and or looking to make acquisitions. Takeaway from the slide isn't that we have a lot of opportunities and we're big. Takeaway from the slide is that 85% of the addressable market fall where the hearts fall, meaning densification is our space. We don't need to be in every state. We don't need to be in every province or every market. We need to be in those specific markets. Tightly held company. We have 21.2 million standing shares altogether, fully diluted, 27 million. This is the largest owners there, the Aquilini Investment Group. own the Canucks, obviously, and big developer in Western Canada. Another developer, TY & Sons, Propella, which used to be called Round 13, which is a SaaS, one of Canada's largest SaaS tech investors. Myself and the Peterson Group. Peterson Group is the group behind the Shangri-Las and the Fairmonts. It's another big name that you've never heard of. Outside of myself and Jim, great executive management team, a lot of experience. Dan is a lot of experience in tech and a lot of M&A activities. Scott Orange used to be the CEO of Gateway Property Management. You may have seen the name before. We made that acquisition a couple of years ago. He's still with us. We have Shobana on our IR team and Jennifer on our communications and marketing. Takeaway from today is that this is probably one of the biggest industries that you have never thought of. I said to you, who's disrupting, transportation? You'll say Uber. If I said to you, who's disrupting food delivery? You'll say, take your pick. Any of the big names, DoorDash or what have you. But $110 billion annually, and who's disrupting that space? You couldn't name a company. And that is the opportunity. And we think we're incredibly well positioned to do this because we're bringing tech right in the sweet spot of that. We have multiple revenue streams. We're not dependent on anything. I'll start by saying we're recession proof. We've proven we've grown significantly through COVID. So pandemic proof, a new term, I guess. And most importantly, we don't care about interest rates. We do not care we don't want them to go up much more because it's painful for people, but buildings have to be managed. Buildings have to be completed. And we're seeing a significant movement from single family homes to our types of communities. We're very aggressive in M&A. We've done multiple transactions a year. We have a strong cash position and we definitely have a great management team. And most importantly, we're very active and none of it is glitzy, nonsense making press releases. Every press release we put out, if you're interested in reading them, you'll see they're very specific to either the bottom line or the strategy of the company. Spoke a lot, quick. Happy to take any questions. Yes, sir. What's the last part of the Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely do not want to be touched that with a 6-foot pole. No, I'll tell you, Airbnb, great question. Just for everybody's knowledge, Airbnb, which is 30 days or less, is actually not legal in your condos. I don't care what you do with your condo, but you shouldn't be doing it. Just FYI. So we do not do Airbnb. That's not part of what we do. However, we do manage communities. Like, I'll give you an example. If you're familiar with in Whistler, the Four Seasons, there's obviously the Four Seasons Hotel. There's also the Four Seasons residencies, but there's actually rental pool. That's a little bit of a different animal. It's not Airbnb. So we are active in that. Not a big part of our revenue, but we are active in that. In Green Belt, we do not have any activities in that market. Yeah. Sorry. We probably manage buildings for them, yes. And pretty much most REITs in Canada, we don't have a long list of them, would probably manage for all of them, yes. Yeah. Yes, sir. We do not have debt. When we structure deals, we have vendor buyback. So, I say that meaning we don't have debt that we've taken on, but when we buy a company, we usually do some stock, some cash, and some vendor buyback. So that will sit and we'll actually pay that based on the performance, like an earn-out, essentially, for the entrepreneur that sold us a business. So we've got a couple million of that. That's it. But that's scheduled to be paid out based on the performance of the business. We do have access to senior debt, which we haven't talked about much, but we're one of the few companies that are healthy enough and can execute on M&A that senior debt is available to us. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'd like to get to that point. We're not there yet. We're not profitable yet. We've been investing in essentially in our infrastructure to get where we are. We have an R&D team that obviously requires us to build all the features that I mentioned earlier. It's certainly not something off the table when we get there. We see our business running at about 50% gross margin, and we think we can be somewhere closer to the 20+% of cash generation. Like that's what I think the business can do still through hyper growth, but we're not there yet. We're getting there. Okay, thank you so much. I do welcome you to stick around for the next presentation. She's dynamo and a great company, and I'm a shareholder. Thank you.